Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. It looks like we have a super huge group tonight, which is very exciting. So I just let the applause. I'd like to get everybody set up. Get your mics turned on, your volume up, because we are in for a really fun evening tonight. Before we begin, I'd just like to thank you all once again for coming out this evening for our panel event, What I Wish I Had Known, Tips for Success from Recent Grads. My name is Tanya Huell, and I will be your MC for the evening, which I'm very happy that there's a lot of you because this could have been very awkward. I am the Programming Director for the ASIS SJSU Student Chapter and currently in my second year as an MLIS student with a focus on archives and preservation. I know everyone's busy on end of the semester assignments, so again, we really appreciate you being here. I have two of them staring at me from across the room. So we will hopefully be able to end our discussion promptly at 7 tonight. Before we begin, I just wanted to go over a bit of the program this evening. Let me know if I'm speaking too quickly. I have that habit, especially when I'm just staring at a computer. We will be joined by our two recent grads through a panel discussion, followed by a Q&A. After the discussion, we will be raffling off two free ASIS memberships. Woohoo! Yay! Before we begin, I'd like to pass the mic to Tamara Hawkins to explain a little bit more about ASIS and our chapter. So there we go.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Tanya. Thank you very much and hello. For those who I don't already know, my name is Tamara Hawkins and I am current chair for the ASIS student chapter here at the School of Information at SJSU. I'm an MLIS candidate in my final semester and I will in fact be convocating in just a few short weeks, so very excited about that. And I'm also very delighted that this is going to be my final event with the student chapter as part of the executive. So a little bit about ASIS, and I will keep this fairly short and sweet. So ASIS is the Association for Information Science and Technology. It's an international professional organization with more than 4,000 members worldwide in the information sciences, and members of the larger association, so the student chapter is obviously students here at the iSchool, but beyond in ASIS Central, it includes not only librarians and academics, but also computer scientists, linguists, engineers, scientists, and others whose practices involve the organization, retrieval, analysis, and management of information. So we are in good company. I've talked about ASIS a number of times during my tenure here at the school. This is my second year as part of the executive. The first year I was in the position of social media coordinator, which is another hat actually that Kelly wears. So she's joining us tonight as the collaborate assistant, but she has many talents. And so I've pitched a little bit about ASIS over the past couple of years, and what I usually emphasize is that this to me is the association that's more oriented towards the IS and LIS. So those students who are interested in emerging technology, information research, digital services, digital curation, or DAM may find that ASIS best aligns with their interests. And I can say this now after 2.5 years at the iSchool, we have a really excellent virtual community here. And I feel very strongly that joining an association that resonates with your professional interests can provide you not only with a sort of home base as you go through the degree, but it's also a place to explore some new topics and specializations and bridge you a little bit beyond the university and into the wider profession. So I could go on at length talking about the benefits of the association, but since we're all information professionals here tonight, I'm just going to encourage you to seek us out online. And I think Tanya has some links for us at the final slide of the presentation that will tell you how to contact us and how to look into ASIS Central. And I would also urge any of you looking for a leadership opportunity and a way to get more involved to consider joining the executive. We are closing our nominations tonight. You can send us an email. There's still time. You have until midnight Pacific. So do consider joining us. We're currently recruiting for the positions of chair and vice chair. And if this is the first time you're hearing this, but you're very interested, do drop us a line, and we'll do our best to get back to you in a timely manner. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it over back to Tanya to welcome our two really excellent alumni panelists that I'm so glad are with us here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, Tamrick. Thank you. So yeah, I'd like to now introduce our panel. We have Gina Nichols and Elizabeth Byrne. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Elizabeth. If not, forgive me.
No, that's absolutely correct. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'd like to give a little bio on each. Gina currently works as the Collections Department Head and Digital Initiatives Archivist for the U.S. Navy CB Museum in Port Hueneme. I think I just butchered that.
You did. It's okay.
It's in California, and I'll let her tell you more about that. She worked for 5 years as a lecturer at CSU Northridge, teaching archival management courses, and has authored 4 books. Nichols has an MA and BA degrees in history from CSU Northridge and her MLIS from San Jose State University with a focus on digital initiatives and emerging technologies. Forgive me, I'm having a hard time reading today. Her current research areas encompasses merging special collections with GIS technology to enhance the user experience. So thank you for coming. And then Elizabeth has an extensive background in technical services in a variety of library settings, school, public, and special libraries. Degrees held include Bachelor of Arts in English, Simon Fraser University, and a Library Technician Diploma, Langara College. She has served as Membership Director of SJSU's ASIS chapter, as well as a copy editor for SRJ. Areas of study include vocabulary design, metadata and taxonomy, digital assets management, record management, and instructional design. Elizabeth lives near Vancouver, Canada, and has just graduated with an MLIS from SJSU. So thank you both for joining us this evening and letting us know more about your experiences as MLIS students at the iSchool. We really appreciate your time and joining us today. I will be asking a series of 5 questions. In order to mitigate any mic confusion, I will take turns addressing each of you. This is a personal trick that I have learned at the iSchool myself. So, with no further ado, we'll just start this off. Nicole, do you have a question?
I would just like anybody that is not a member of the ASIS to just let me know on the chat box so I can start the raffle.
Oh, Nicole, I think we do have a, oh, never mind. I'm going to let Tanya handle that. Apologies.
Oh, no problem. We will actually be doing the raffle at the end, so I will go ahead and facilitate that after we do the panel discussion. But thank you, Nicole. Wonderful. So to get this started, I will start with Elizabeth, and after Gina, just go ahead and follow up. So we'll just go like that. So please each share one lesson learned that by graduation was perhaps unexpected. Did you head into the degree expecting one thing only to find the reality was kind of different?
Well, to jump to something that was unexpected, one thing coming into the program, I thought that group work was a real nightmare. But once I started working with my colleagues at school, I found that they are really motivated. They had excellent life and work experience, and the group work turned out to be phenomenal. And it's a way that you learn how to work with your colleagues and how you're going to be behaving professionally. So that was my takeaway.
I happen to agree with the group work. I was really dreading it, to be perfectly honest. But then I probably that the breadth of classes, which was better than I thought it was going to be. There were the core classes, which I dreaded and I wanted to shoot myself. Being an archivist, I had no intention of being a librarian, but actually they were much better than I thought they were going to be. And all of the electives, I was able to choose all the ones that I wanted, and they were much more interesting, and I got a lot out of them because I was able to tailor my courses to my job most of the time. So I was able to kind of get a twofer. I was able to, complete my class assignments while also getting out of it something for work, which benefited both.
I agree with what you say, Gina, about the electives. I think I ran out of credits. I had more courses I wanted to take.
I definitely agree. I could easily have just kept going if somebody would have continued paying for it, or anybody would have paid for it.
Great. So then I will move to question 2 for Gina. In regards to the e-portfolio, do either of you have any suggestions for keeping track of core comps, figuring out what could be considered competencies, even though they aren't noted in descriptions, and general impressions of Info 289? I know personally I've been starting in my second year to really pay more attention to that information, so love your advice.
I'm very anal retentive, which most of us tend to be anyway. I started probably my second semester. I created this spreadsheet which had all of the comps. So there was a column for each comp, and then I kept track of each class that I was planning on taking and which comp that it fulfilled. So that way I was planning way in advance because I find this fun and exciting and enjoyable, which is sick, I understand that. And so I was planning out what I thought I was going to take, and it definitely altered over the time. But I tried to choose at least one class and was able to accomplish that fit each comp. But at the same time, I was also keeping track of what things that I did at work that and in the spreadsheet at the same time of things that I thought that filled in a certain comp. And I would, as I was keeping copies of all of my assignments, I was also putting in my work assignments that I thought fit into each comp. So I created a folder for each comp. And as first I kept it of each class, and then I started backfilling and creating other files for each comp, and then putting copies in under each comp, and then things for work I would also put into that comp so that I had everything completely separated out. I didn't start doing that until the semester before I started 289, and then got everything organized that way. For 289, I just made sure I tried to finish at least 2 comps a week. I also started, because I did it in the fall, I started it basically as soon as spring semester ended. I started working on it. I did, even though they say not to, because it really depends on who you get, who your advisor is. One, most of them are flexible enough. The other thing was that I just started working on the front part, which was describing each piece of evidence, and that way, and then I was able to tailor it after that point to my advisor's, how she wanted it specifically. But I had already separated everything out. I had already started writing the front part on most of it before the fall semester even started, which was definitely helpful.
And I followed a similar course to Gina in that I started out with a spreadsheet. It's just really simple with all the comps across the top and just entering under each comp the course number and the name of the assignment. But I found quite quickly that some assignments I could put them under numerous different comps. So, but I just carried on with that. And like Gina, I created a really structured, hierarchical set of folders, just word folders, and I kept my assignment sheets, which are really valuable. Some of the instructors will tell you how their assignments match with certain competencies. They all don't, but some do. And yeah, the assignment sheets, you'll definitely need those at the end while you're writing your e-port. I think the sections of my folders, I kept all the course information, the syllabus, screen sheet, intro, schedule, kept list of classmates. I didn't ever call upon classmates for information, but I did have a couple of people from group projects who contacted me to ask for something that they didn't keep the final copy of. All the assignment sheets, keep only the completed assignment final copy, your readings, your lectures, discussion posts, save your individual discussion posts. And the course, the ePort 289 was an interesting experience. I found that you could, depending on how you argue your competency, you could apply the same piece of evidence to different competency, depending on how you could explain how it fits the competency. So you have to be creative. But I found that I didn't really seriously decide which assignments I was going to use for which competency until it came to be about 2 months before the ePort started. And that's when I really went through and decided which assignments I was going to match to which comp.
That is a lot of useful information. Thank you for that. And just to remind everybody, we will be doing a Q&A following these questions. So we will power through the questions and then you'll get your opportunity. So for the third question, Elizabeth, what extra experiences did you take part in, like extracurriculars as far as any internships, WISE, travel abroad, EC of a student chapter, attending conferences, any of the above were not mentioned, and any comment on value, anything you wish you had done but didn't have the opportunity to. I know it's such a short time that we're in school, so any of those would be great.
Yes, thanks, Tanya. I think the one thing I really regretted not being able to do was to complete an internship. I had arranged one, but because of life situation, we moved and there was a death in the family, sadly. I wasn't able to complete it, but I really wish that was one regret, that I didn't do an internship. I think it's a great way to make good connections. I definitely say you should go to library conferences, and even better, volunteer at library conferences and speak to people because your name gets out there. I've been a member of my local library association for years. I joined the cataloging special interest group and I used to go to their meetings regularly. So I got to know all the catalogers in my area, and they know who I am too. I try to keep my resume up to date, and LinkedIn too, because prospective employers and people that are interested in you can view it anonymously, so it's really good to keep that up. And I think one of my best experiences was being on the student chapter of ASIS&T and joining Surge as a copy editor. You know, taking on a role as a professional with a professional organization gives you excellent experience to put on your resume. It also lets you meet fabulous people and make some really good connections.
I didn't do an internship. I definitely, when I taught archival management at Cal State Northridge, I would oversee the archival practicums. I highly recommend it. Definitely worth it. All of my students got, you know, immense. There's nothing like actually doing the job. In fact, one of the reasons why I actually got a job in graduate school was because I was able to say, I've done this, rather than, well, I read about it, which is what the people I was up against were saying. Definitely, I was part of the student chapter for ASIS&T. I was the managing editor for Surge. I attend conferences and do workshops quite frequently. Society of American Archivists, I went to the ASIST conference, annual conference last year. I've done SAA conferences, ALA conferences. I do a lot of free webinars online. Highly recommend them. One, you get a lot out of it. It's an hour of your life, and they're free. This is the best part. People are usually more than willing to share their experience and their lessons learned, and definitely always worth attending. And I think that's it.
So Gina, comments on how you choose your courses. We're flipping gears a little bit. In the iSchool website career pathways, sorry, I'm reading this and I'm realizing it's not a complete sentence, so forgive me. End of the semester mush brain. Comments on how you chose your courses, as far as like, did you do any certain career pathways, and then or did you do something totally different? I guess, did you, do any of the certificate pathways, stuff like that that are suggested through the iSchool?
They had just come out with a couple of the certificates as I was getting out, and I could have stayed another semester in order to wrap it up, in order to add the certificate, but I decided against it. Now that it's part of the program, you could probably merge it in as you're choosing your classes and do them simultaneously. I started following, I think it's like emerging technology or something like that, one of those pathways. I didn't follow any specific pathway. I went back for my MLIS for me. I did it, again, I'm an archivist. I had no intention of being a librarian. I wanted to enhance my technology skills. So I chose classes that filled the comp while it's still something that I really wanted to learn about. So I didn't follow any one of the pathways that they give you to kind of choose from. But that wasn't my decision of why I decided to go back to school and where I was headed and what I wanted out of the degree. So I was much more flexible that way with where I was going.
And for me, I already had a lot of experience doing cataloging, and I was following the digital pathway to start with. And like Gina said, the certificate programs weren't really in existence yet. But partway through, I decided I wanted to head more towards public libraries, so I ended up taking things like Reference and Information Services 210 and History of Use Services 268. Big Data Analytics 246. Yeah, and yeah, that's it.
Do you feel that those, I guess just to follow up, do you feel that those certain pathways for you, Elizabeth, that they helped inform class decisions? For us that are still continuing, today was fall registration sign-up. So I'm sure there's people in the room that might be curious if they aren't aware about the career pathways and those types of decisions for selecting courses.
Okay, well, yeah, I did look at those career pathways, and for example, for the digital one, when I was starting out, metadata was one of the options in digital asset management, vocabulary design. Those kind of fit with the library I was working in at the time, and also 256 archives and manuscripts. But then I thought very hard about what would be required in public library, and I really believe that many of these courses you could apply them in any type of library. But I think if you have something that you absolutely love, those pathways are helpful for making sure you hit the most important courses that match with the type of library that you want to end up in.
Great. So for the last question, and not the least, Elizabeth, what we are all dying to know from both of you is what kept you sane-ish and got you through your degree? Favorite resources or tips? I'm sure we're all feeling that right now.
Yeah, end of semester. You'll make it. Just keep going. I put up little motivational pictures around my workstation. And also, I would take breaks sometimes. Sometimes you realize you're looking at your computer, you're looking at a screen, you're writing something that's totally incoherent. You're really not being productive. Sometimes you just have to step away, go for a walk, listen to some lovely Baroque music, or listen to Down with the Sickness if that's what you like. Maybe go browse some, well, you could go browse some blogs or something that you're interested in. I think really you do need to take a break and maybe get some healthy food into you. And something else I did when I started the program was when I was trying to formulate an idea, I would be stuck at my desk. I would get up and go and do something like clean. But I found that my house was never so clean as when I started the MLIS. I guess it kind of turned into procrastination.
I will agree with cleaning my house. My baseboards were never cleaner because when you're sort of sitting there staring and you kind of look down and you're like, I have to clean. I have to stop right this second and absolutely clean that baseboard right now because it just can't wait one more second. I like to read. I also will just veg and just watch television. I also would, and I was reading, somebody said the same thing where they set goals for themselves, and so I would, it would be like, well, if you complete this or you finish all your reading, like in my head, you would get X, whatever that would be. So even, you know, if it's like a free hour kind of thing. I'm also not married. So there's a perk there, at least when you're going to school. So because you're really, I have my son, and he was a teenager at the time. So you know, pros and cons. So I had a lot more free time, to be perfectly honest, than a lot of people I was interacting with during school. You know, because they had small children and husbands. I mean, they had the whole family thing. They were definitely splitting their time, making sure that their family wasn't neglected. So they were staying up a lot later, and so I did have probably a lot more free time than a lot of other people. But definitely, yeah, I would say set small goals, and I agree with Elizabeth, which is if you're sitting there staring and you're not producing anything, that just walk away, even if it's just for a 10-minute break, and then come back. I'll also usually write a lot, and then I put it away, and then I come back and then edit it. One of the things I learned when I was getting my master's in history, which is you sort of, you're better off barfing basically on your piece of paper and then going back and editing, because you want to get it out of your head. And if you're sort of there doubting yourself every third word of, oh, is this the right way to write this sentence? Don't worry about it now. Just get it out, get it on paper, and then go back and edit it, because then it's much easier to tweak it than it is to have all your self-doubts as you, that you're not putting it on paper. It's a lot easier just to, again, barf and then fix it later. So.
Oh, I totally agree with that, Gina. Just get something down, give yourself enough time so you've got another day, come back to it the next day and look at it. And then you can, if you've got those ideas there, at least you can fix your writing.
I got a dog. That's what I ended up doing personally. So wonderful. We just finished our five questions, and now I'd like to open up the discussion to everyone else to ask Gina and Elizabeth some questions. So if you'd like to either type in the chat box or use your mic, that's up to you. And raising your hand's perfect. So Bianca, we'll start with your question.
Hello. I think I heard a term that was used I was not familiar with, so I wanted to make sure I understood that. Elizabeth, I think you were mentioning something about assignment sheets. Did I hear that correctly? And if so, what are those? Should I know what those are?
Oh, yes. Thanks, Bianca. It's just when your instructor gives you an assignment to do, they usually have a sheet that has all the instructions about the assignment, what they're requiring. And when you're going to do your e-port, when you have your actual assignment that you've done, you might not remember why you were writing about that. And the assignment sheet, the instructions that you got from your instructor that tell you what they want you to do, that can give you some really good insight about how you can match that piece of writing that you've done to a competency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. That actually makes a lot of sense. I'll do that. Thanks.
Felicia, you're on.
Hi there. I'm actually one summer class away from moving on to doing my e-port. I find myself lacking in a few comps. Is there any way to make that up during the e-portfolio session? And is there like a certain format that you follow along to while writing your comps?
Well, I'll go ahead, Gina, first. Yes, I found that when I got to the end, like I said before, I ran out of credits. I hadn't taken collection development yet. And so one of the comps is all about collection development. So I did feel like I had good evidence for it. So I just got a book about collection development, and then I studied that for the explication portion of the competency, and then I went through my pieces of evidence, and I was able to find things that fit with what was required for collection development. It's interesting how you can argue something to show that it fits. So like competency after selection, evaluation, organization, and preservation. So I had pieces of evidence that fit selection, evaluation, organization, and preservation, but I hadn't taken collection development. And then your other question was format. I found out what the instructor wanted for each competency. I created a template, just a Word template that had this different sections of the comp, and then I would just pull out that template for each one that I started, and I didn't have to rethink what do they want for each of them. I hope that makes sense.
I was able to, if I didn't have something, or there was one like K or something that I only had like one piece that you, and Elizabeth said it earlier, which is that you can take a something that a piece of evidence for a class that, to say they think it's only for BF and D or whatever, but you need a piece of evidence for L. Well, if you can argue it, that you think that this fits L, and that's why you think it fits L, you can, if you can sell it, they'll usually buy it. It depends on who your advisor is. But the other one is you can use stuff from work too, or if you've done an internship, if you've had some life experience, if you are the member, the secretary for some club where you created X, or you're a volunteer doing Y for some organization and you created something, you can add that into your comp. You just need to explain how it applies to the comp and sell it and justify how it fits this comp and why.
Great. So Tracy?
Hello. I'm trying to save my stuff for the e-portfolio, and you mentioned like the grading requirements, and I noticed that like for most of my classes everything's in Canvas, and so it's just on one of those pages. And I'm struggling to find the best way to save all this information at the end of each semester. And sometimes I'm literally just doing screenshots, and I was wondering, is there a better way to be saving this information off of Canvas? like the grading requirements for each assignment?
For the grading assignments, you should be able to print out that page because I was keeping that, because that also helps you fill each comp in. Like I said, I created folders for each class, and I would keep copies of everything. When you go into Canvas, and I can't remember how to do it now, but where they have you, where you can create your portfolio, you can keep a copy of everything there, and then that's where I would pull it off. I would pull off that final copy and keep a copy of it in a folder on each of the classes. I did do some screenshots because some of the stuff was done into a discussion, but usually a discussion you can pull out if it's graded. There's other things. I did a blog for another class, and so I had to print out those and like PDF them or do screenshots. It was a different variety, depended on what they were requiring of you and how you could save it best.
And if you, like I didn't think about saving the assignment instructions for last semester when I first started in the program. I guess I wasn't thinking about the e-portfolio that semester. Am I just kind of out of luck as far as getting that information?
No, the iSchool keeps copies of all the green sheets on their page, and they keep it by class, by semester, and you can look it up online.
Thank you. Thank you. So Tamarack, do you have a question?
I do have a question. I thought I'd ask. This is like a little bit more philosophical, I think, and Gina, I think this is actually something that I think you talked with Dr. Byrne about before previously as well. But I'm wondering if either of you have any thoughts or impressions that I know it's way back now in the fall, you finished up in December, this is old hat and you've moved on with your lives, but any sense, like, what did it feel like essentially to finish that e-port? Was there sort of I mean, it's a very large project, whatever else it is. I have to say that I personally feel like it's, and this is probably for the best, but I feel like the iSchool kind of overhypes just how complicated it is. I mean, it's a chunk of work and it takes a little while, but it's probably not going to break you truly. Yeah, to either of you first, I don't know if that is a question that resonates with any experiences that you had with it, but sort of what that felt like to wrap up and look back.
Well, I'll jump in first because I know that Gina's got other master's degrees, but I hadn't had an experience of writing a thesis. So this was a big project for me, and I found it interesting that all the different sections of the e-port, how the different competencies are all kind of linked together. After a while you think, well, why is there a J and a K? Like, aren't they kind of similar? Anyways, everything kind of dovetails together. And I know that looking back at my e-port now, I'm very proud about how erudite I sound. So Gina, what did you think?
I definitely saw the point. At first you think, well, this is really dumb. I have written a thesis, but when you first start the comp, you're thinking, okay, this is just a complete waste. I got it. I understood what they were doing and why they were doing it. They really wanted you, the whole point is that you're going to go over, look at all of your coursework, everything that you've created. You're going to see, how much you've grown. Because you're going to look back and go, oh my God, what was I thinking? Or I can't believe I had that viewpoint. Or I write so much better than I did at that point. And you're going to find how much more cohesive and communicative and elegant your writing gets, and how much your thought process has grown. And then, like Elizabeth said, you start putting it in through each comp, and each comp makes you look at your coursework differently, to take an academic look at each piece that you created, and how does it fulfill this comp. And it makes you think harder about where you started and where you come, and and how much you've grown as an academic in each one of these comps. And then the whole point is to pull it all together and to show you not only kind of where you started and then where you've come and how far you've grown during the entire course. That was what I got, what I believe their point is to actually making us do the comp. And I will say, having written a thesis, the comp is much easier.
That's what I suspected. Sinead made a good comment. It's good to keep your discussion postings too. I used a few of those in as evidences. I saved the whole discussion just for provenance, but I kept copies of my individual postings and I used those for evidence. And Tamarack, you've just finished doing the e-port. How do you feel about it at this point? I know that when I go back now after 4 months and look at it, I think, wow, it's pretty great. But how are you feeling about it now?
It hasn't been as long of a gap for me. I finished up earlier in the semester, and I think I had a slightly different experience with it. So I just started a new job a little over a month ago, which is great. It's the first one that actually says librarian on the business card. I've been working in libraries for a little while. Thank you. So I had a very, and some of you have already heard this story, but I had a very lengthy job interview, considering that it was for a public library and not an academic library. It was about 4 hours, and I didn't realize it was going to be this long. And I'm pretty extroverted, and I can talk at length. But even for me, this was this is an unexpected amount of verbosity that I had to pull out of myself. And I started the e-port right around the same time as I had the interview. And so the e-portfolio for me really felt like a very long interview. I was like, I just did this. This is basically the same thing. Because most of the interview was really, tell us about a time that you did X. And so it was finding an example and then talking about it, which is I found really similar to the e-port. I think the hardest part is filtering the evidence into the comps. And probably everyone is very different with this. I do tune in on that not so secret Facebook group that everybody joins to kvetch about the experience of the e-port. And it does seem like some people, maybe by luck of which advisor you get, it could be harder or easier, and unfortunately we don't have any control over that. I didn't find the writing of the comps particularly difficult, but organizing what evidence was going to go where, I think doing that all at once for me was really helpful. And I'm also going to throw out a tech tool that I have grown to love and use for a lot of projects, and I found really helpful for the e-port. I actually use OneNote, so I don't know how many of you are Windows or Office users, but just creating a workbook for it, and then I had a tab for each comp, because being able to figure out which evidence goes where, I really needed to sit down and have like a big uninterrupted time to absorb what each comp was about. Because you've got, how many of them again? There's like 20 or something, like 15, 20, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's quite a few. And so I had to kind of just sit down and reread the short descriptions over and over again to figure out what I was going to put where. But I personally gave up the spreadsheet and I went for OneNote. I found that was useful.
I tried OneNote, but for me I didn't need to do it in a complicated way like that. I think I just created another new set of folders and put my actual evidences in those. But then there was also a really great, on that Facebook, semi-secret Facebook group, there's a couple of nice templates for using. Oh, and I just wanted to say, for me, I'm a total introvert, so I think I'm going to find that e-portfolio to be useful to go over before job interviews.
So we have time for a couple more questions if anyone has anything that they're itching to know. Tracy.
Sorry, one more question. It was mentioned in the chat, but I just wanted to confirm. So for some of these bigger projects, like the end of the semester projects that can meet both multiple competencies, it's okay to use them as evidence for more than one competency?
I think it depends on your advisor, but I think most advisors let you use the same competency for at least two, or sorry, the same piece of evidence for at least two competencies.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. So this is all very good information. It's kind of mind exploding, actually. So I just wanted to ask you both if you have one last final words about your experience, something that we might have not covered that you think was kind of profound or could at least be useful tips for any of us who are still finishing up our degrees.
I would just definitely recommend, I think we went over this ad nauseam, but keeping all of your evidence. One of the things that I noticed on the Facebook group actually is that I cannot begin to tell you how many people were on there like, oh my God, I can't find this piece of evidence, and then they're trying to track down a classmate and they can't find it. And then they're desperate and they're trying to find something else. Definitely document, document, document. Keep a copy of it on Dropbox or Google Documents, or, you know, definitely keep backups of everything. Somebody had asked a question about, you know, group work, and, you know, one of the things is that when you do group work, you're just going to put, you put the assignment up there, you black out other people's names, and you just say, you know, what part you played in it, you know, what exactly was your part of the assignment and what you did to fulfill it.
Yeah, that's so true. And you just know your computer's going to fail at some time. That's just inevitable. So you just keep everything. You keep it backed up on Dropbox or Google Docs. And I had an external hard drive as well. Where else did I save it? I have it saved in 3 places.
I would email myself too, and so I keep a copy at work.
Smart. That's very smart. I guess what else I would say is it's definitely doable. I guess we have some people who are here tonight that have done this as well, like Sinead. Yeah, it's definitely doable. You can get through this.
Can I pop in with one more comment? Yeah. I know I'm not actually on the panel and I keep speaking, but I just wanted to put in one more, like, I'm not officially an alumni yet. I've got a couple more weeks and one more painful assignment to get through. But I just want to stress for those of you that are not on the home stretch yet, you know, if you're not already sort of finishing up, Sinead, it sounds like you're finishing up as well, and there might be those of you that have already planned out that you're finishing in December. There's a mix I've found at the iSchool over the many classes that I've taken. There's a lot of us who have a lot of previous library or related experience. There's also a lot of us, a lot of students who don't. I, like Gina and Elizabeth, or similar to Gina and Elizabeth, came to the MLIS with quite a few years of experience. And something that was really front of mind for me was using this as a time to try to leverage new opportunities into my career. So, you know, it's different for everyone. This isn't to say that, you know, everyone needs to follow a particular path and definitely do something different, but both Gina and Elizabeth, you mentioned, you know, or Elizabeth, you mentioned the internship for yourself as something you would have liked to have tried. And Gina, you were able to testify that, you know, seeing it from the other side, that it's very valuable. I would also agree that's probably the only regret that I have, is that I wasn't able to do also an internship, but time is finite. And just to think about, you know, what else you can do while you're here other than just get through it. And I know getting through it is really hard, but for myself personally, I can tell you that I've delayed my graduation by almost a year. I came in and I was like, if I really plug away at it, and I was working part-time through the entire thing, that I could also, you know, I could get it done in I could go through the summers and get it done in 5 semesters, and I would have finished up last summer. But I would have actually missed out on a lot of opportunities. So I've been able to be a part of ASIS for 2 years. Like Gina and Elizabeth, I've been with the Student Research Journal now for over a year, and that's been an amazing opportunity. There's, you know, and an internship could have been something like that as well. And so just to consider that, you know, you finish the degree and you no longer have that currency as a student. You can approach people for informational interviews under the guise of being a student. You can reach out for an internship under the guise of being a student, and that all goes away when you're done. So if there's something that you think you would like to leverage into your career, to think about that as well while you're considering what courses you want to take and, you know, how you're going to survive until the next break.
I will also add one more thing. I did use the surge in my comp and assist. So definitely, if you're going to do something, you know, extracurricular, you can use that in your comps.
I would like to say one thing. As a fellow archivist student, a lot of the program is designed, and the comps are designed a lot for library and information based comps. And so I was struggling with K myself, and I had almost a meltdown when I was going over my class selections. And I recently accepted a position, internship at the Hoover Institute. And I was delighted to find out that I'd be able to use my internship to cover some of these comps that my coursework does not. And I found that internship through the SAA's website. So I implore a lot of you to go and look at ASIS' main website, ALA's main website, the SAA's main website for internships. The SJSU internship portal is kind of lacking for a lot of the hot topic new ones that come out. So that's my experience, at least.
As somebody who manages an archives, most of us will take free help. So if there's some great place that you think that you would love to go intern, just go contact somebody. None of us have enough help. None of us have enough staff. You know, we're all underfunded, and it is definitely worth 3 hours of my time to train you in order to get 144 hours practicum out of you. We enjoy it. We want you to come volunteer. It works out both ways. We get a product out of it. You guys get a great internship. So just don't worry about the surge or the the iSchool, and if it's on the list, just go approach someplace and see if they would love to have an intern.
All right, so I'd like to thank both of you. My dog just started attacking me, which means it's almost 7 o'clock. Best alarm clock ever. So I just wanted to go ahead and start the raffle off. So as I'd mentioned previously, we have 2 memberships for ASIS to give away. And I wanted to know by raise of hands who is not already a ASIS member. We are giving away new memberships. Wonderful. So I have a handy dandy random number generator that I'm going to plug you guys into. So is that everyone? We got 7 of you. Okay, perfect. So without further ado, technology. All right, so I have number 1. Who is number 1? Felicia. And number 6, that is Tracy. So congratulations, Tracy and Felicia. You both are getting free ASIS memberships. And your membership includes, oh, sorry, let me flip it. I needed to get my Oprah slide.
You're still here. You might want to put your contact in the chat box there.
So let's see. Your ASIS membership includes a JASIS subscription, a membership to other ASIS SIGs, reduced fees for conferences and other ASIS publications, access to Jobline, access to free webinars, and it's an ally with your professional association that speaks to your professional interests. All right. So, moving on, we would like to thank our panelists, Gina and Elizabeth, for giving us great information and feedback about their experiences here at SJSU. And I'd also like to give a huge thank you to Kelly Presley, who is our wonderful collab assistant tonight and fellow ASIS EC member. Thank you all again for joining us this evening. If you have any questions about joining our chapter or about future webinars, please seek us out on the web or send us an email. We hope you have a great evening and a wonderful summer, and hopefully you got those classes you wanted for fall. Thank you again for coming to listen to us talk.